Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Talks on Tuesday. I'm Chelsea, and I'm here with Barbara, Mary, Julie, and Renee. And we're just going to visit for a half hour and hope maybe some others will join in. Today's my day to kind of choose a topic. And I watched a movie recently. It was called The Wonder. I saw it on Netflix. And it was based on a book by an author named Emma Donoghue. And evidently she has written some other books. I think she's best known because I looked it up for a book called Room, which was also a movie I saw a few years ago. And so I ended up ordering the book from this movie, The Wonder, because I really got a sense that this author, even though it wasn't like in your face in the movie, but I really got a sense that this author, after watching two movies adapted from her books, really has a sense of, that there really is no separation between me and Mary, or, just the overall sense of oneness and oneness with all things that seems to be big part of my experience. And the beginning of the movie kind of has a narrator, and it's a little bit of a poem. I'm going to read it. The narrator says, "Hello, this is the beginning of a film called The Wonder. The people you are about to meet, the characters, believe in their stories with complete devotion. We are nothing without stories. And so we invite you to believe in this one." And it goes on. And it's a really unique movie because it kind of gives away the fact that it's a movie. It'll kind of show that it's filming from a stage set. So I kind of had an analogy, like right now after this movie, like just walking around my own house, I would look outside at the sun and the sky and the horizon that I can see, and I would get a sense of what it is like to realize that maybe that really isn't real out there, that maybe that's a green screen and some lights, and it just really, because for me, I really do believe a lot that I am like living a dream. I'm living God's dream. And why am I living God's dream? So God could have experiences, but back to that little poem, it says, "We are nothing without our stories." And that's how the narrator kind of puts it. But to me, I really feel like the author is saying, we are no thing without our stories. And I'm really excited to read this book and see. And it really got me thinking. Just all comes down to not sweating the small stuff. It's just we're just living experiences. I remember we were in Solomon the other day, and Mary brought up the fact that she just feels like she's in her vehicle, and I'm paraphrasing for Mary, and the world is coming at her like a snowstorm. And experiences are just coming at us like a snowstorm. And in a lot of ways, we don't have to worry or fear. It just is. What are your guys' thoughts?
I've spent my life teaching stories, writing stories, and being in stories. And yeah, we all have our stories, and we can be in the same room with 100 people, and we each come out with a different story of what happened. And on my bathroom mirror, I have taped, it says, "Wake up, Mary, you've been dreaming." And I feel that, like, if I come across something and we turn things into stories, that
Mhm.
just like, oh, I'm going to connect the dots and that will make a story. But if you look at a page full of dots, we're each going to connect them in different ways. Um, and so whenever some lawyer says, well, we're just connecting the dots, well, you might end up with a ducky, you might end up with a kitty, but you're just connecting the dots in different ways, and these are stories. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I was rambling, sorry.
no problem. It's I'm also it seems like I feel like we're on a cusp of storylines in movies and stuff being more blatantly obvious to what essential truth really is, that we are all love, that we don't need to sweat the small stuff, and you know, learning compassion and one-on-one for our fellow traveler is just really all that it's about.
Yeah,
Uh,
I had that realization on, I guess it was yesterday morning. Over the weekend, I had spent the weekend with a friend of mine who had some surgery and was discharged Friday afternoon. And then some convoluted things happened Sunday at her place. And I didn't really react a lot, but I was not super happy about how things unfolded. And then Monday morning, I was kind of sitting there thinking about it, and it's like, oh, A did this and B did that, and C did this, and what's it all about? And then I just realized I just like created this whole thing in my head. I just like came up with this big convoluted story, kind of like exactly what you're saying, and it doesn't matter, And I was kind of trying to decide if I should be feeling miffed at B, and it's like, oh, just let it go. And it was such a beautiful realization. It's like freeing. So, yeah, looking more at the big picture.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
big picture. And we talked about that in Solomon Speaks last week too, about the big picture. And we each have our little stories, but we don't always see the big picture. And it's like clips of film on the cutting room floor. We pick this one up and that's a story. And seen out of context, it might be something just horrible. But in the big picture, it may have been absolutely necessary to the big story.
yeah.
I have I don't know if it's a quote or something that somebody said, probably Jillian. And it's life is the inquiry of our true nature. So everything in life, our stories and everything can take us to who we really are. It's, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking with Gordy about that, it's a treasure hunt. We believe all these stories up until the point where we can maybe see them in a big picture way. We Then we see the gift in it all. And Gordy just said to me, but some people just really don't want to get to the point where they want to admit that there's any sort of treasure to be had, or a lot of people just don't want to get to that point where maybe the struggle does have a reason and a rhyme and
An attraction.
a
Yeah.
victory in the end, lesson.
it's their path, it's their choice. And
Hmm.
yeah,
It's just so much funner to live in happiness and fun and let the rest go.
totally. Yeah, it is. It's very freeing.
I keep
going back to Chelsea, what you were saying, that quote that we all know, don't sweat the small stuff. I always often, I go the opposite, right? And I go, well, what about the big stuff? What are we defining as big? And then how does that, join up with the idea of everything? No, I keep wanting to say everything's touching and nothing was touching, but that's not the subject for today. It was,
It kind of is, though. It
remind
kind
me
of
of
is.
they are related, and I was thinking how they're related too, but I wanted to stick with the theme that you wanted to talk about, which was, being everything at once and nothing at once.
Mhm.
So what about sweating the big stuff? What about the big, things that we're all so bothered by and get so triggered by? And how does being everything at once and nothing at once, and story add to the healing that we're looking for when we're sitting there in life and our body's going, I'm fucking suffering. Like, this hurts.
Yeah,
Something big happened and now I'm sweating the big stuff.
yeah. And are we supposed to sweat the big stuff? I mean,
It's the same,
Yeah.
the same stuff applies, but I feel like I want to articulate it differently. I'm just,
Well, I think stories,
like Mary said, rambling a little.
stories help us see the big stuff in the small stuff, because every story is made up of little things. But when you step back from the story, like in a literature class, you look at the theme and the tradition of the tale, or whatever it is. Stories make us feel better. Like, there can be horrible things, like the Hansel and Gretel story is a terrible story about the witch
Yeah.
who eats children. But in the end, we feel better. Depending on which version. The Grimm story is kind of grim, but I always say humans are the creatures that tell stories. And it helps us to put things into some kind of context in this kind of place of seemingly random events. It's
Yeah. Yeah. I started off the meeting, Durin, talking about the movie The Wonder. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
No.
it's originally from a book, and I've ordered the book. I'm going to read it, but the same author inspired the book called Room, and it's funny. Both of these movies, one was called The Wonder and the other was called Room. Room is this old movie that was a few years ago about this girl who was kidnapped at 17 and kept in a shed for about 7 years, and she ended up having a baby, and so she was held hostage in this garden shed, and then she ended up being pregnant, and this
I know
little
that story
boy.
well.
But anyway, you know, both movies have a point where the lead character that is always a child kind of has a turning point where it's kind of like a for lack of a better word, like a death of what is in this story and a rebirth of what is in a new story. Because like in the movie The Wonder, the little girl closes her eyes and she lets what was her previous life as a child named Anna, and she decides to wake up and be something new without trauma. And then in this movie The Room, the same thing happened where it's time to kind of formulate an escape. And the mother says, I'm going to wrap you up in a rug and I want you to pretend that you're dead. And then our captor will remove you like a dead body wrapped in a rug and put you in his truck. And I want you to roll out, jump out, and go and find freedom. And in both ways, I felt like it was an analogy of the child dying and being reborn, kind of in the way of this was our previous story of maybe trauma, but we are going to awake, and it's going to be a new awakening, and we have, you know, our life ahead of us. And I just thought that was interesting.
Wake up.
Uh,
You've been dreaming.
Jesse,
Yeah, we can all do that. I think it's an analogy for what we all do at some point in our lives. Well, if we're lucky, if we encounter things that help us on our journey and help us grow spiritually. Whatever our soul is looking for, I think we find.
I think to be open to an ongoing story is probably a good way to approach things. You know, I always liken things to a jigsaw puzzle. And, you know, when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle, there could be 1,000 fragments that are comprising the whole and the picture that you're supposed to see. But oftentimes, when you're engaged in creating a jigsaw puzzle, you don't understand how the things are all connected until you reach a certain place where you're ready to receive the next part of the puzzle. And I always love the quotation from Emerson, which is, we are all a part of everything we have met. And, you know, I always get very philosophical, but I guess that's part of my nature. So the story is always unfolding. The story is always becoming, and we're becoming a new being as we progress and experience different parts in our lives. And I had an experience yesterday with an unexpected fire alarm in our building, and many people went outside until the firemen arrived, and something was burning definitely on a balcony. And we all stood there together, and we weren't all enclosed in our little boxes with all of our furniture and all of our clothing and all of our comforts and all the things that separate us. We were all there exposed to the elements in a place of vulnerability and completely unexpected circumstances that, you know, brought us together in a way which was quite different from the usual reference point or vantage point. And you really understand the sense of community when you come through something like that, because, you know, your stuff isn't there. You don't have any stuff. The only presence that you have is literally your presence. And it was different seeing the people that I might pass by frequently. And we didn't say anything much to each other. We just were together while we waited for, you know, the danger to have passed. And then we all went back into our boxes and, you know, looked at everything we owned and thought, oh, thank God it's all still here. And, you know, but we are all a part of it, and it's all a part of us, but it's not really who we are. So.
But it sounds like you enjoyed that shared experience with the others, even if you weren't talking a lot, just being with them, that connection of just kind of being. And it kind of reminds me of last week when Doreen was talking about being in the car on the freeway and realizing, hey, we're all going somewhere to do something. And again, you have that sense of connection with people who, you know, you may not even know, but there's something that's touching you about them and vice versa. And that's, to me, kind of part of the being nothing and being everything, you know. It's like that kind of esoteric way of looking at it or something.
And we are all
And
in each other's stories too. I'm just the protagonist from my point of view. Sorry, Dren, go ahead.
Oh no, this is so perfect. I'm really loving like every word that everyone just said. And when I run it through my little universe over here where I am, speaking of being everywhere, nowhere at once, and going back to the quote unquote big stuff, the big stories that like are so intense and they just seem like they hurt so much, and receiving those. And it's receiving those type of stories. Is my audio coming through okay, by the way?
Yes.
Yep.
My internet connection's terrible right now. For me, sometimes I need like a fast, simple like concept to go to when I receive such stories. And often it's something like as soon as a story begins, it begins to die and it begins to end, and it has a death. And just like everybody's, you know, metaphors and examples that they just used. And I just have to sit with that. And on behalf of whoever story I happen to be receiving that's triggering me and upsetting me, I know that our stories, they decompose. And they decompose beautifully in the field. That's what I'm starting to sense. And for the benefit of all, no matter how intense. And I love that. It really helps me in these times.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting.
Go ahead,
I was thinking a little bit about that not long ago. I guess it was last week, Duran, when again I found out a friend of mine, the one who I was with this past weekend, was really sick, and she had lung cancer, and we had visited her before her surgery, and then when I went home, I was just like really feeling badly. I mean, talk about, you know, the big stuff. And I was sitting there with my feelings and thinking, oh, you know, should I do something to like make myself feel better? It hurts. And then it's like I wanted to feel bad about it. I wanted to experience that sadness and just the pain. And I knew I didn't want to feel it, you know, for a long time, but right at that moment, it's like I want to hurt around this, you know, and it felt so right. And I didn't push it away, you know, I just kind of,
100%.
yeah, yeah. It felt
And-
good,
and
you know. I mean, it was
was that-
just kind of,
were you saying, Barbara, you wanted to share in your friends what she was experiencing, or you were having your own pain about it?
you know, I think it was a little bit of everything, you know. I was feeling badly for her of what she was going through, and just, you know, all the thoughts of she had recently lost a number of other family members to cancer, so it's like, oh gosh, is she next now? And you know, then my own loss of having her in my life, and you know, there was so much. But I just, you know, I just sat there and allowed it to hurt, and you know, eventually I did get over it and things got feeling better, but I didn't push it away. I didn't, you know, it's like I wanted to just, I just wanted it, you know, just maybe to honor her or something. I'm not even sure what it was, but
You sat with it, you know,
yeah,
it came, you sat with it, and then it goes.
yeah.
You
In
know,
fact,
it comes and then it goes.
I was thinking
Yeah.
of you too, Jules, with
Yeah.
your friend who also,
Yeah, I totally relate to what you're saying, you know.
yeah, yeah.
You know, that's part of who we are when we, you know, and it's not fair to say, no, you can't be feeling this, don't feel this, because you know, you know, whatever. However, somebody or yourself might rationalize this is the way you feel. And I know that I'm not going to stay that way. You know what I mean? That's my story that's coming and ending, you know, and I might be back there again, you know, at another story, another, you know, but it's the humanness that we are, you know, but we know what's behind that as well.
Yeah.
And I think
Can I
that
s-
knowing is helpful. Oh, I'm sorry, Charles, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying, yeah. I was just I was just channeling Veronique and saying, wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that knowing Jules, is helpful because we know that it's not, you know, that it is kind of an experience and it's okay for us to feel it, and then it goes. Yeah.
Well, we're not here to be jolly all the time, and often that's not useful. I mean, we bear witness to our own troubles and those of others. And we're not here to say, be all sunshiny, say, oh, I know you're suffering, but you know,
Mhm.
that's not helpful.
Yeah.
If you ever watch the behavior of a child and they are absolutely in the throes of this, you know, the sky is falling, you know, moment, and you know, it seems like so real, and then moments later they're smiling and laughing, and you know,
I just saw a video like that, Renee. I mean, you depicted it. This baby was crying, and whoever was in the camera, whatever, I can't remember, did something, and she stopped for a second. She started laughing. You know, it was just like there's not a lot of thought going in there because they're so young. They're just, it's kind of, you know, just a natural thing, and we don't usually do that when you're adults, you know.
because we have this up here which gets in the way of a lot of
Exactly.
analytical.
We have,
Yeah.
we have a tendency to drag lines out on and on and on and not feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been wonderful today. And I know
God,
me,
that's
I'm gonna rewatch this on our YouTube channel, Talks on Tuesdays, and I'm gonna probably give it a thumbs up because I think there's a lot here that was just really wonderful. And in closing, as I was prepping today, I grabbed my little Solomon Speaks book that I love and opened it up with, and what showed on the page was a few sentences, and I think it'll be a great closing for today.
except don't forget
Except
about
what?
next week to
Oh,
inform.
yeah, before I read this, yeah, thanks, Julie.
Mhm.
Before I read this, Julie and I are going to be hosting next week on our own because our lovely Barbara and Mary have some fun excursions planned. And so we would like to invite you, Renee, or you, Darren, to help us with a topic for next week. So if you think of anything in the next few minutes after I read our little quote, or just email us, okay? And you can be somewhat of a kind of like a guest host. You know what I mean? Oh, bye, Darren.
Bye.
Hope
Well, where'd
she
she
drop
go?
off with her bad internet. But anyway,
Oh.
I'm gonna close with this. And if you want to go back and find it, it's on page 69. And Solomon says, your life force is greater than the sum total of all your experiences. The energy that comes with you into the energy that comes with you into this plane is unfathomable. I just really feel like that. It's a
What page is
period
that,
at the
did you say?
69.
At the bottom or at the top?
The beginning of the first whole paragraph, it says your life force is greater than the sum total of all your experiences. Which kind of
Okay.
bookends with our life force
Oh,
discussion
here.
and everything. But
Yeah.
thank you all for today. And Renee, why don't you just stay on for a minute and we can say thanks and end our recording.
Bye bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.